Hello everyone, I'm Priyanka Gaur. As you already know that last time I have shared about Hardin-Sapotova disease diet, in which I have shared about my whole routine in a day, my morning meals, afternoon, evening, and what I used to have in night. But today I will discuss about all those things in much more details. So we'll start with the presentation. Okay, so today we will discuss about the contributing factor of HS. What are the things that I thought that would had impacted me that led to me this particular problem. Second, we will discuss about the leaky gut. What is the role that it is playing in our health? Third is the healthy body. What are the things we should have that will be good for our body so that we can heal this particular problem. The fourth, I will talk about the food intolerance report. I have already shared every one of you that it played a very good role during my journey, during my recovery from hydrocephalus disease. So I thought that I should just share my report and tell you the nitties and gritties how I took it as a feedback. So first we will talk about the contributing factors of HS. Yeah. So here, I just want to tell you that when I joined the Facebook group which was related to HS diet, there I got to know that there is one book, The Hidden Plague, in which the details related to HS are mentioned. So I read that particular book. So taking this particular content that I'm explaining here from that particular book only, so that the new people who are not aware that what exactly is happening with us within our bodies, they should know, so that they can do the things accordingly. So the thing is that here you can see the Holy Trinity. It's a triangle. So there are three major contributing factor for HS that act to lead to this particular disease, and these are the thing that it's not something that you will get it in 1 day or 2 day. It take years that you get this particular problem, and also it take years to get rid of from this particular problem, so you need to be patient during the journey. So first we will talk about the genes. So here genes, how genes plays an important role, that if anyone in your family has a already have autoimmune illness. So for example, it can be anything related to thyroid, it can be diabetes, it can be arthritis, it can be cirrhosis. There are a lot of autoimmune illness, and these are there are very very common, at least in these days, in every family. So you can think that maybe a one person or other person maybe have these type of genes here and there, which impact. So though that is the first factor that act in the Holy Trinity triangle. The second factor is our environment. So what exactly is the environment is, that if you are getting frequent colds, any bacterial infection, any viral infection, you are getting it again and again and again, because of which your body need to be in continuous alert to fight with those infections, or any food allergies you have, the food that are not suiting you, and because of which you have some particular symptoms. For example, you're getting rashes, or you're getting diarrhea, or etc., something like this. So these are that is the external factor. This is the environment that plays a second role. So third is the leaky gut. So leaky gut is like that because of poor eating habits or poor lifestyle, maybe we can say, or there are a lot of things that come as if you have a lot of inflammation in your body, then this leaky gut comes in a picture. So when these three factors combine, they leads to the autoimmunity. So other thing, leads to the autoimmunity. So in a leaky gut, you can have, fatigue, you can have muscle or joint ache, you can have allergies, you can have depression or asthma, skin issues, metabolic issues, and inflammation. So these are the things that comes under a leaky gut. And in our lifestyle, in our daily lifestyle, we used to have one or other these type of symptoms within our life, but it's just that we just avoid them. Now how comes into, or how autoimmune thing come into this, that when these three particular things get combined, ultimately they lead to the autoimmune diseases. So those autoimmune diseases, you have again your type 1 diabetes or the HS, hydrocephalus. You can have an inflammatory bowel disease, you can have a cirrhosis, you can have arthritis, or you are intolerant to gluten. There are many more. You can search in the internet and you will get it. Okay. So that's how we get. But in the next slide, we'll discuss that, how it happens in our body. So here in this particular slide, you can see that you can think it as a healthy gut. Why it's a healthy gut? So, see, in our intestine, when we inhale our food, in our intestine it goes to our stomach and then to the intestine, and then absorption of nutrients happen. So in our intestine, there is a cellular wall, a single cell wall, which we call enterocytes. So these are the enterocytes which helps to absorb all those nutrients, and they then pass those nutrients into our blood vessels, in our bloodstreams, or you can say our lymphatic system. The lymphatic system, which helps for nutrients, proper nutrients absorption, it's a very important part. It gives lot of help to the cells to work so that they can absorb the required nutrients, required mineral, vitamins, whatever it requires. It plays a very major role. Okay, so in a healthy gut, how what it happens that when food comes into the intestines, these enterocytes just help that food to get absorbed, and then it pass it to our blood. Okay, that's how it happens. But here, if you will see the leaky guts, what happens is, due to the on your ongoing infections, or if you have a leaky gut, what happens that these enterocytes so has a microscopic holes in them. So when your food enter into body and body start functioning on them to to get rid of from the waste material to a large intestine and to absorb the nutrients and to pass the proper nutrients to the blood, what happen that toxins or waste or also get passed from those holes, and that enters into our bloodstream. So once this particular thing enter into our bloodstream, uh, the our immune system get alerted because it see that there are some foreign material which body was not expecting has already entered in our system. So what it does, there are a lot of immune cell, or you can say the white blood cells, that comes into the picture, and they keep an alert, and they start fighting. They start fighting with these particular toxins or waste that already entered it in our blood. So again and again, when body comes into position, when whenever we eat, or whenever that particular toxin enter our body, the our system comes into alert position again and again. So it's like a it's like a it's a cyclic. Whenever food enter into your system, because you have a leaky gut, you have inflammation, so your body will be in alert again. So that particular thing again will cause a leaky gut, because your body is not getting time to heal, to close those microscopic holes that has been caused. Okay, so again, so this is a cycle that keeps going on, and you keep getting this autoimmune issue, and they don't get cure, or your body is not getting time to heal those particular holes that has been caused due to the various factors which we have discussed already. Okay, so the next thing is how our body work. um, it's like the our body love the food which is alkaline. Why I'm saying that, if you will see that whenever food enter from our oral cavity, here the pH value, if you'll see, it will be 6 or between 8 or 7. That's how it acts. So it's like that, when we chew our food, you already know that saliva get reduced, so it it is very helpful in digestion, and that is alkaline in nature. So further, this particular saliva will help if you chew your food properly. Ideally, you should chew your food maybe to 20 or 30 times. What you can do, you can just take a bite and you can just sing a line of a song, just a line, and by that time it will be very much chewable and maybe it will be in liquid form. Ideally, at that particular time, you should allow your food to get swallowed. Okay, so if you do, maybe you can try it as a practice, it will be very helpful. So once you have entered the food via oral cavity, so first you have a pH value that is between 6 to 6, 8 or 7, 6.8 and 7.5. That's it is. Okay, so again it's a alkaline. Now again, when you got a stomach, in the stomach is the only place where you have a pH value between 1.5 to 2. The reason is that because here you have a HCl, you have a acid, which helps to again digest your food. It convert into maybe it convert into a simpler glucose or simpler nutrients, whatever, or it's a churning process that happens here. So it does into a smaller pieces so that the things can be done. So once this particular activity done in the stomach where it has a pH value that is only here it's acidic, the food goes into your intestines. So here in intestine you have those enterocyte cells that I've just discussed previously. So in these cells again your all your nutrients, vitamin, mineral get absorbed and they pass to your blood streams. And if you will see here, you will have a small intestine have a pH value of 7.2 and 7.5. So again, it's a alkaline. So once it is done, the waste is passed to the large intestine. So here in large intestine also you have the alkaline. So it's between 7.9 to 8.5. So when you note the all these value, you will see except stomach, your whole body needs food that should be alkaline in nature. So because if you will give that particular alkaline food to your body, it will the work needs to be done by body to that particular to digest the food, to get the nutrients from the food will be much more easier and will be much less time consuming than if you feed your body with more of the acidic food. Okay, the same thing if you will see it's shown here. So here it's like based on a pH in this diagram is share it is shared. So here as I have just explained you about alkalinity. So here it's mentioned that if body is alkaline in nature, then it will be more healthy. But if you are going toward more acidic, then you will go towards the sickness. And I think that's the one thing we are in today's lifestyle we are facing. We are feeding our body with lot of acidic food, the processed food that we are having, the canned food, a lot of sodas or the liquids in which lot of sugar, lot of acids. So we are moving towards more sickness, not towards the alkalinity. We're not having a lot of fruits and vegetables. We are not looking after our diet, what exactly we are taking in. Okay, so if you'll see, so if your body is going to acidic in nature, then oxygen delivery to the cell suffers. The minerals, the mineral assimilation, the minerals which are required for the body, for example, you need little small amount of every mineral. It can be a chromium, it can be a sodium, it can be a phosphorus, it can be a definitely calcium is much more required. Except a lot of minerals that you need for our body, and then they're not there because you're not able to, by giving a food you're not giving them the proper mineral that it needs. You're just feeding it with acidic. And then enzymes which are helping to digest this food, then they can become destructive or whatever the organs. Ultimately, if you will not give the proper diet to your body, your cells are not getting the proper oxygen, your body is not getting the proper vitamins, proper mineral, ultimately you will end up with a lot of health issues. So that's what it is mentioned, organs of a body will be compromised. So that's that's particular thing, that's what happened. when we are not taking care of our diet. But the good thing is that, out of all these factors, out of these three factors, if we are able to remove, if we are able to know that what are the environmental factors that are impacting us, because this is the thing which is in our hand. If we are able to control this particular thing, then definitely we can recover from our problem. We can recover from this leaky gut, whatever the microscopic holes we have here in our anthrocytes, they can be healed. Okay. And by the time, once they start healing, you will start feeling less pain. You will not have those frequent cough and cold, or you will not feel those fatigues, those body aches. So all those things come in the picture when you start healing. Okay. So that's how all this particular thing happened that I have explained. Now we'll move towards my the food intolerance. Food today I just tried that, my video should be short. Last time it was no. So what's the food intolerance report? So food intolerance report is something, where they mention the number of fruits they have categorized into a different category. In fruits, they named it as fruit, dairy, your vegetable, the seeds you are taking, the grains, uh, on meat, all those things that comes into a picture in the food intolerance report. And on for a particular item, a number is assigned based on the test results you have, and according to that number you can take the particular action. So I'm just showing the interpretation that I had in my food intolerance report. So here, if you have if you have a number less than 24, then that means it's a normal food item for you. There is no need to get rid from it. You can have it easily. It will not cause any harm to your body as per that report. Okay. The second is, if it's between 24 to 30, then yes, it's a borderline. So maybe you need to avoid this food for at least 3 months, so that your body can heal and it can adapt that particular item. The third one is, if it's greater than 30, then definitely your body is not coping with up easily. It's actually suffering while having this particular item. So it's better you should not have it item at least for 6 months maybe. So value varies. So the thing about this particular report, that it is not something very, I mean, you can say it's just an idea that you will get about the food items that you should not have it. But there can be some more food items that can also cause an issue. But in this report, at least you get an overall idea that what should not be taken in for you. So I will start with the diary, but before that, I will just tell. So, for example, in case of HS, when we talk about the food, we say that we should not have dairy, we should not have a gluten, we should not have a sugar. Okay, we sometimes they say we should not have yeast, or we should not have other nightshade vegetables. So a lot of things everyone say, but we need, but then it comes in our mind, then what should we have it then? Because in our food, whatever things we have been asked to avoid, all those things are a part of our day to day life. And if we will leave everything, then what we are going to what we are going to have. So from my experience, I am sharing that the things which I got get rid of, I stopped taking in, and what are the replacement that I have in place. So maybe that will be helpful for you also. The first was a diary. When my food intolerance report comes, so it was the diary. So here you can see that for me, the cow milk, this was the cow milk, which was the value for which was much greater. It was the 157 at that time when I got it done. And I was actually surprised to know that milk was not suiting me, because I belong to a particular place where we used to have a lot of milk and curd, a lot of dairy item we used to have it. So as time passed, I shift to a different place, where water is different, environment is different. But I was not able to change my food habits. I was taking my food as I used to take since childhood, and I think that was the part. That's the thing that caused this particular HS problem, because in my case environment definitely played a very big role, because I once I shifted to this new place, I used to have a frequent cough and cold. So once I have those frequent cough and cold, what happens that I used to take lot of antibiotics inside my body. So when I took a lot of antibiotics in my gut flora, this, if I will say about this is the gut, right? A healthy gut, it contains a lot of organisms. So in my gut flora, definitely I had the healthy organism, I had a bad organism. So what happened, it has badly impacted my healthy organisms. So a lot of them, because of intake of lot of antibiotics, my bad organisms just came more and more and more. Their ratio in my body came much more than the healthy ones, and ultimately, I end up with this particular problem. So that's what at least happened with me. Then later on, the thing was that I was on frequent cough and cold at least for a year, and along with that I was taking on dairy, the other food items that was actually irritating my gut. So in short, it was not helping my gut to heal, it was actually irritating, and ultimately I end up with the HS. So we need to make sure what we are feeding in, and we need to make sure that the environment we are in and how we need to go along with it. So in my case, the case was that, once I saw this report and saw that, cow milk is the one that is the culprit for me, but surprisingly buffalo milk was not. So then I reached a conclusion that, in my hometown I used to have a buffalo milk, so that is the reason it was still suiting me, but the cow milk is not the one. So what I was doing, that despite of having HS continuously, I was still having milk, because I was not aware that, cow milk is the one that is causing issues. So I was having my diarrhea. So once I saw this report, it made me sure that, I am on right path, that I got rid of from the dairy products. So here also you can see that this is the casein, this is the particular protein that the milk contains. So buffalo milk also contains this. But the thing is that for me, here it's only cow milk was the major factor for me. So I didn't give much think about this casein, but definitely, whenever I went to my hometown, I made my intake of dairy very, very, very less. That too, when I moved to stage one, where my body can little bit tolerate, in limit, it can tolerate the milk products. Okay, so the thing is that how I replaced it, I started making the coconut milk. Yeah, it almost tastes like, it's a normal milk, or normal milk. I used to replace my curd with the coconut chutney. I just used to grind the fresh coconut. I used to have it, so at least it was helpful to satisfy my taste buds. The other thing that, in smoothies, rather than adding the milk with the fruits, I used to add banana. I used to add coconut water. We already know banana has a lot of calcium and phosphorus. It's very good for health. And coconut water, it's act as a very good hydrated. It's anti-inflammation. It contains a lot of minerals, so it has a lot of benefits I discussed in my previous video. So that those are the replacements that, I did for at least for the dairy. So next I will move to the grain. So here, grain. So in grain, if you will see in my everyday life, I was not, as per this particular report, if you will see that, in grains, the oat has the highest value for me. And for the wheat, for the rice, which were the major contributor in my diet, I used to, these are the value which were the greater than 30. Okay, so, but still they were red, and I was worried what needs to be done. The good part was I got to know that the millets, these are the millets, they were acting as a zero. That means that I can have it in any amount and it will not harm my body. So what I did when I was on stage three, definitely I did not have wheat. Anyway, I don't take wheat now also. I did not have wheat. I switched to millets for that particular time. And oats I completely stopped because definitely the value was in hundreds. So for me in food intolerance report, the things which were greater than 75, I should say, the values which were coming greater than 75, I stopped taking them completely. It's like they don't exist in my diet. That's the situation. Okay, maybe later on, sometimes here and there, yes, I let them in, but that's because I am at stage one. If I would have in stage three, definitely I will not take anything with whatever is mentioned there. So you can see that, in this particular report, so I was not allowed to take wheat, I was not allowed to take rice, corn. Corn was a surprise for me, definitely. Then it's oats. Yeah, oats was a major part of my diet as a breakfast, so I had stopped taking them. So the reason, maybe the oats which were taking, they were in processed form. That's the reason I think it's there. But anyway, I stopped taking them. So I replaced them millets. So millets. So see, here I will just talk little about millets, how they were playing the role. So what happens in, see, there are in this particular chart, maybe you're not able to see properly. It's divided into three parts: positive grains, neutral grains, and negative grains. So positive grains are the ones, when we intake them, the amount of sugar produced, the amount of glucose produced, it's in this single number. It may be 7.5, 6.5, 7.29, anything, depend on millet. So it's like, that when you intake a millet, it makes, it's not like that, ulti the moment you take in, at the same time your glucose level we went up high. No, that's not, but that's the case when we take the wheat and paddy. That's the case when it happens, because here if you will see the ratio of carbohydrate to fiber, it's 63 and 395. So in our case, because we have autoimmune illness, in our case, we ideally we should switch to the items where, our our insulin level does not spike immediately. It should happen gradually. Because we need to give our body time to do a particular action. Okay, so in case of millets, what happens, because the ratio of carbohydrate and fiber, it's in single, mostly single. So it happened us to heal, and by the time slowly and easily the glucose are released from these millets, and are accordingly the insulin is getting released, and the whatever things are required from, because they contain lot of iron, calcium, lot of things. I mean, they contain minerals, carbohydrate, glucose, whatever it is. So they contain a lot of things. So they get digested easily and timely in our body, rather than just to have a wheat and get a spike. So how I know that, because I felt it myself, that whenever I used to having the wheat roti, just wheat roti, I used to have a body ache just after having it. So it was like, my inflammation levels go up immediately when I used to have a wheat roti. So this was the my experience. So I stopped taking it, and later on when I read about this millet thing, I realized that, why this particular thing was happening with me. So here, if you will see, there are two types of millets: the positive millets and neutral millets. Positives are the foxtail, barnyard, kodo, little, and brown top. So these are the millets that will help your body to heal. Okay, and because they're helping you to heal, definitely they will not do any harm. The other are neutral millets. They are pearl, fingal, proso, great millet, and corn. So these are the one. Neither they will not harm you, but they will also not heal you. They will be just okay. They are the good for your body. That's what they are. So what I did, yeah, I tried the few of them. I didn't try the every millet, But whatever, whichever millet I tried, for example, I tried barnyard millet, I tried kodo millet, and I found that yes, they are the suitable for me. I'm not getting any constipation issues, any bloating or gas any issues when I was having barnyard and kodo. So they were suitable for me. So I included them in my diet. But when I was taking foxtail or little, yes, I realized that I was having little bit of issues and here and there about bloating. So out of five, I chose two for my diet. So that's the thing you need to do. So whatever new food you're going to include, you need to observe the symptoms in your body, how you're feeling. So accordingly, you need to go for it or don't go for it. Okay. So same is the case for the neutral millet. Now I know that the finger millet is the one which suits me most. So, and the pearl millet I take here and there. So these were the two millets that were the best for me. The rest I didn't try because it was not required. I already had sufficient variety in my diet related to grains. So yes, I did that, and ultimately I switched to these millets. Okay. The next thing is the what were the replacement. I have already discussed them. It's a finger millet and kodo millet. The other is the gram flour. Yes, I take gram flour. I put lot of veggies in it. I just have it as a chila. The later is the jawar, that is sorghum or bajra or pearl millet. I am having jawar roti or bajra roti, and depend on the season, because jawar you need to have in summer and bajra you need to have in winter. You can have the dosas also of the same thing. For millets, you can definitely have different varieties. You can have it as the lemon rice or tomato and replace rice with a millet, and then you can have, or the porridge you can have for these particular things. For the white rice, because sometimes we need to have urge to have rice, what needs to be done, what needs to be done. So for the rice, definitely I used to take the barnyard millet. I found it's the best replacement for the rice. The second is the brown rice. Definitely you can take, because it's an unpolished one, and when you soak the rice for 7 to 8 hours before cooking it in, so whatever the enzymes required to digest this particular thing, whatever the proteins which are required, which should be digested in our body, they get activated. The microorganism get activated in these things, and ultimately when you cook and you have it, you're going to have a full benefit, rather than the one when we just quickly cook and have all those things. Ideally, that way does not work. So in case of millets also, the same things happen. Whenever I need to have a millet, I definitely I soak them for 6 to 7 hours at least, and then I pressure cook them and make a number of varieties that I need to take in. The same is the case with the barnyard and the brown rice. So these are the grain replacement that I'm using. The third one is, and most important, is the water. Okay, so why I'm discussing about the water here, because yes, it also plays a major role. And how it plays a major role in my case, I used to have the place where I belong to, I used to have a soft water. Okay, so I used to have a soft water. So according to that soft water, I used to have a dairy, and whatever that I had there, I had a wheat, majorly wheat as a grain intake, definitely vegetables and fruits. I I was not getting any cold infections there. So water was playing a major role to digest all those varieties. So it's like, regional. I was taking the regional food, I was taking the seasonal food at my hometown. It was known to me, and water was playing its role accordingly, and my body was able to digest each and everything. I was doing very well. But when I shifted to a new place, so there it's a, here at new place it's a hard water. So here in hot water, when I was taking dairy, when I was taking the same diet that I was taking with the soft one, it was not getting adjusted, and ultimately it was causing irritation to my body. I didn't get time to find out what are the food items I should take in here in hot water. Maybe if I would have done that, definitely things would have been different for me. So, so hot water was not able to, do these things for me very well, and that's how it happened. So what I did, so so the same thing what was happening, when I have to, um, when I go to my hometown, my wounds used to start healing. Okay, so there again it was a soft spot of for me. The food items, I was eating regional and seasonal, but when I come to the new place where hard water is, my wounds start getting open. So it was the water again that was the culprit that was acting on for me. Okay, so that's the thing, that the role it was playing for me. The second thing is the water retention. The water retention, why I've mentioned it, it's more about the water intake. What we do, so a lot of us are very busy in our lives and we don't intake much water. Okay, so what happens that our body start to retain within it. We should know that lot of toxin that comes out from our body, it's via water just washes them all and get them out from our body. But in case of water retention, what happen when we are not giving the water to our body, when we not drinking the enough water, body starts storing water because it needs for its functioning. And ultimately the toxins you have, they remain in your body, and you're not able to get rid enough from the toxins. So again you start feeling swelling in your body, or allergies, or a lot of things that starts happening with you. But you have no clue that why it's happening, and the solution is simple. You need to increase your intake, water intake. So that's the water retention plays a role. The solution is that to from this water retention is to, you should have at least 1.5 to 2 liter of water every day, so your body does not have a habit of to retain water. It's just can have a sufficient water supply so that it can wash off the toxins from your body, and your body functions well. Second thing, the thing I changed, I take boiled water. So any of you, if you're facing this particular problem where at particular place your wounds are not getting healing, but at another place you feel that your wounds start healing, so maybe it's a water that's playing a major role for you, just try to have a boiled water, and definitely you will be fine. Okay, so that's the information that I wanted to share today. I hope it will be helpful. In the next video, I will just share more on the digestion, fruits and vegetables that played a role, and role of hormones and sugar. For any questions, definitely you can post your questions in the comment section of YouTube, or you can directly email at gorpri@gmail.com. Till then, bye bye. Take care. Take good care of you, and use as much as information you can from these particular videos. Definitely, you will be healed. Okay. Bye bye. Take care.